Throughout this entire course, we have often talked about economics, because in the end, that's what actually makes things work. There may be small aberrations when people go counter to their pocketbook, but generally, if something's cheaper, people buy it. So if you are a utility company and you're deciding what type of electrical generation should we do, economics will certainly be one of your major considerations. So how expensive is nuclear power? That's a difficult question to answer because you have such a very different types of cost compared to its competitor, and its competitor these days is natural gas. So let me compare a nuclear plant to a natural gas plant. Now the first thing we're going to look at is the capital cost. How much does it cost to actually build a nuclear reactor? These numbers go up and up. Many times it's the first reactor that's built of a given type. The new advanced Generation 3 reactors, the first ones are going to cost more than the newer ones. So the number I'll write here, which is $5 billion, some people will say is too small. Some people say, oh, no, maybe the second, third one we can do that for that price. We'll see. It's certainly close to that. And a natural gas power plant of the same size, and by the way, I'm talking about 1,000 megawatt electric, or at least approximately. This is the size of the nuclear reactors we have today. If someone comes up with cheaper modular ones, fantastic, but this is generally your large size power plant. A natural gas power plant of that same size, much less capital cost. Maybe $1 billion. They're not free, all right? That's still the number with 9 zeros, right? $1 billion, we need boilers, we need a lot of them. You still need your generator, all that other type of stuff. You see, if you just thought of capital cost, that's great. Clearly, natural gas is cheaper, making the same amount of electricity. But you've got to consider fuel. Uranium is not all that expensive. Sure, it's a lot more expensive pound per pound than natural gas or many metals. It's cheaper than silver, it's cheaper than gold. And you have to enrich it up to that 3%. But even so, because of the intense energy content in a nuclear fuel, you don't need very much. 1 ton of U-235 lasts you for 3 years. So our fuel cost, approximately, is going to be around $64 million a year. Whereas the natural gas plant, I looked up the most recent numbers, and the wholesale price of natural gas goes up and down, but this number is closer to $450 million per year. Half the cost of the power plant, where this is something like a 100th of the cost of the power plant. So the fuel cost, so this is why asking a simple question is so difficult. Capital cost is so huge, but your fuel cost is so low. How do we figure out what the cost is? Well, we need one other piece of information. We need the time to construct. You see, utilities, at least in the United States, are not allowed to charge for their electricity until the plant's actually operating. You can't say, oh, I want to add to all your rates because we're building a new power plant. That's not allowed. So you're going to have to carry the interest rates, the cost, the $6 billion that you had to borrow. You're going to have to carry all that until you're actually producing electricity. So the time to construct for a natural gas power plant of this magnitude is pretty short, 2 years. The time to construct a nuclear power plant, well, that's again a guess, like this capital cost. We're not making all that many of them. The French had a very good system in place. They made the same plant with small improvements time after time by the same workers. they could get it down even to the order of 4 years. So let's say 6 years for our example. Chinese seem to be on that track to be able to do things in about that time and at about this cost of the new AP1000 advanced Generation 3 passively safe reactors. Still, to get an overall thing, we need to know what is the interest rate. Because nobody just has $1 billion or $6 billion in their pocket and says, oh, here's the money, give me a power plant. In fact, even if they had that much cash, they should compare it to what kind of interest they could get putting it in bonds, a bank, something safe, compared to actually spending it. So one way or another, you're going to borrow the money, and you need to know at the interest rate that you can do. So today, these interest rates are very low. And in some large utility type project, let's guess that this would be 3%. And what you have to look at each year is how much money do you have to pay? What's your mortgage? And also, over what length of time? So let's use the example of a 25-year mortgage at 3% interest. Each year you pay some back, it's interest plus principal, and at the end of 25 years, you've paid back your entire loan. So what is the interest payment you would make in these cases? Well, I called up a bank, said, hey, I'd like to borrow $5 billion. They were done laughing. I basically asked them to run their calculator. And my interest payment each year here would be $285 million a year. And of course, for 1/5 of that, it's only $57 million a year. Now, with this set of numbers, which might be correct for now or next year, we can do an interesting economic calculation. You see, each year you're going to have to pay your interest rate, you're going to have to pay your fuel cost, and for the first 6 years, you're not going to make any money. This 1,000 megawatts of electricity at going rates right now, this is going to give you an income of $525 million per year. Running a power plant, people buying your electricity, this big of a plant, that's good. That's good. And clearly that number is bigger than these added together, maybe not that much, but you know, this is at the cheapest of electric rates. And maybe you sell wholesale and you have better deals and you can make more, or maybe your fuel costs will actually go down. These are all things that will turn and make this calculation difficult. But let's just use this for an example. Now, let's simplify this. Let's have a unit, whatever that's going to be about, 60 million. All right? So I'm going to say this is about 1 unit, and this is about 7. This interest rate, this is about 1 unit, and this, of course, is 5 times as much, so this is 5 units. And how much I can sell it for? Let's say that's 9 units. Now we can do something where we can look at what is the amount that you're in debt or the amount of money you've made versus time for both of these situations. So let's compare nuclear and gas this way. Right here is the bottom line. Well, actually, it's the profit loss line. All right? This is in the plus, in the black. This is in the red. And we want to put 2 things here. We'll put the nuclear power plant, and we will put the gas power plant. Then we have to do our year counter. Year number 1, both plants are under construction. Now, you don't have to borrow the entire $6 billion all at once. So you're first going to borrow just $1 billion and then pay the interest on it. So here is the interest for the nuclear power plant, and here's the interest for the gas plant. each of these little boxes. It's about $60 million. That's year one. Year number two. Gas plant still isn't built, still under construction. They've got to pay off their interest. All right? Got 2 units. Nuclear power plant, we had to borrow another $1 billion, so our interest isn't 1 unit anymore. Now it's 2 units. All right? We're in the hole at -3. Gas plants at -2. Year number 3. Nuclear power plant, borrow another $1 billion, pay interest on $3 billion. That's 1, 2, 3 of these units. The gas plant, hey, we're done. So what are we going to do? We can pay our interest, okay? It's -1. But we get to sell electricity. And that's going to cost us 7 units of fuel, and we're going to make 9 units of profit. This is a +1. Well, we get the +1, so we get to take one of these away. Year 4, still building that nuclear power plant. Had to borrow another $1 billion. Had to pay interest on all $4 billion. We are at -10 right now. Gas power plant, same formula. It's making $1 billion, or it's making a unit each year. It's back to even. So 4 years into this, the gas power plant is completed. It's been selling electricity for 2 years, and if we look at the accumulated assets, we're now at a break-even point. Let's go to year number 5. Year number 5. Takes 6 years to build the plant. So we now have to, we're probably borrowed all of our money at this point. So our plant is going to have -5 of these things right here. The gas power plant gets its first profit. Year 6. Still haven't quite finished this. Still have to pay off our interest here. Okay, it's not accumulating. We borrowed the whole $6 billion. Gas power plant, a little bit more profit. Finally, our nuclear power plant is done. Of course, a lot could go wrong. People could protest. There could be construction delays. We're still hoping that we're only at a 3% interest rate. But now we are here at year 7. The debt is a -5 units. The fuel is only -1 unit. And we sell the same amount of electricity. This is +3. So, by the time we are here at year number 7, we can get rid of 3 of these. And over here in Gasland, we're at +1. Year 8, same thing applies. Get rid of 3 of these. Add 1 for gas. Year 9. All right. 3 more go away. Over in Gasland, 1 more profit. Year 10. 3 more. One more profit. Year 11. Year 12. Almost out of debt. Finally, on year 13, looky here. 1, 2, 3. The nuclear power plant has been operating now for 6 years. They finally have turned the corner and are in the black. The gas power plant has been making money fairly steadily over time. Now it's pretty interesting. If things are still going well, interest rates haven't happened, we don't have any type of accident that's shut down the place. We're at year 14. This is adding 3. Whereas on the gas side, we're adding 1. Year 15. 1, 2, 3, 1. Year 16. 1, 2, 3, 1. Year 17. 1, 2, 3, 1. Year 18. 1, 2, 3. Huh. You know what? We've just surpassed. 18 years later, the people that said, hey, let's build a nuclear power plant, they're now making more money than the people who made the gas plant. They took a lot more risk. There was a lot here in the negative area. But now, things are looking rosier. How far will this go? What happens when the plants are paid off? Year 19, we had 1. Over here, we add 3. Year 20, we add 3. We add 1. Year 21, 1. Just get this up to when our mortgage is paid off. Year 22, 1. Year 23, that was 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, and 1. Year 24, 1 more year on the mortgage. So, year 25, the mortgage is paid off. Nuclear power plant, what do we got? 6 by 6, 36 in the plus. Gas power plant, 21 in the plus. Looks like a better idea to have built nuclear under a lot of caveats. But what happens next is very interesting. Because at 25 years, we've paid off part of the mortgage. And I realize that part of that mortgage you didn't borrow for a few more years. So this isn't exact. But look what's going to happen in time. This minus 5 is going to go away on this side. This could lead potentially to something like plus 8. Over here, it's only the minus 1 that goes away. This goes to plus 2. The potential in the long run for a nuclear power plant to make more money is astounding. 25 years might have been the mortgage, but these plants have been shown to have at least a 40-year lifetime. Now, as a plant gets older, it's not just the fuel cost you pay each year. There's going to be operations, there's going to be maintenance, these things, this number will be larger. This profit is not going to be this huge. But what I wanted to illustrate with this example is that if you look in the long run, and if a lot of other things stay constant, a nuclear power plant could be more economic. Very few governments look beyond the length of time where the officials are actually in power. Maybe there's some exceptions, and let's hope our politicians have long foresights in front of them. even fewer companies take a long view. And that's why when you're looking at the landscape today of who is building what kind of power plants, everyone, almost. There's a few exceptions, but in generally people are building the gas plants. They cost less. There is a shorter time to actually complete construction of them. And there's much, much less uncertainty. Still though, because the fuel costs are so low for a nuclear plant, if you can have low interest rates like we have today, if you really think you can build that power plant in 6 years, and if your costs are only $5 billion, you could end up with a real moneymaker. So what happens if you levelize the cost? You take the entire costs, profits, fuel, capital, all of that, and you average it over the entire lifetime of the plant. Well, you can get a graph that looks something like this. And you can see, depending on the year, because that would depend on what the cost of the fuel was and the interest rates, that nuclear power does pretty good. I didn't show you coal, right? But it has very similar cost, and for a long time was always considered the cheapest and safest bet. Of course, it also makes the most greenhouse gas. Gas, which had been a way to make power at a much more expensive level, because today of the low gas prices, you can see has also come down to this same range. And even though oil is down to the $50 per barrel compared to $100 per barrel, oil is still not the way you go to make electricity. So economics is complicated, and it's difficult because the assumptions you have to make about interest rates, about the plants working, about being completed in time, about not having cost overruns, all point to be able to make a modular nuclear reactor at smaller scale. And that's what people are working on across the world today. Because if you didn't have to go into such large negative territory, if you didn't have to build such an expensive power plant up front and take so long before you could actually make any electricity from it, given the low fuel cost for nuclear power, it could be a very smart bet. That's what you need to know about nuclear economics.